Good morning and welcome to everybody to the first Fight2Flight Friday Forum. This is a pilot event. We hope to develop this as part of the residency that Fight2Flight has here for the next year. It is presented in association with Smock Alley and the Irish Theatre Institute through the Accelerate programme, which is funded by Rethink Ireland. And I would like to give special thanks to Lucy Ryan of Smock and to Jane Daly of the Irish Theatre Institute for their huge contribution to this event. Fight2Flight are the resident artists in Smock Alley for this next 12 months. We are already doing one production of The Chronicles of Ogle. There's plans for a second play, which I've also written, called The Letters of St. Declan. We are funded to develop a play called My Name is Elizabeth, which will be presented here in reading. And there's also plans to develop an adaptation of Ghosts by Ibsen as part of the programme as well, which will be given a reading, hopefully, to bring to a production at some stage in the future. We will also be presenting workshops and hope to develop the Friday forums, dealing with as many issues that actors face today and providing an opportunity for people to discuss these things that we all understand and that we talk about privately, but it will be an opportunity for us to bring this out into the open. The issues today are simply around anxiety and stress associated with an actor's life, entitled When Am I an Actor? There's a second forum next week which is going to have a panel of younger actors who will talk about how their lives are influenced by stress and anxiety, and particularly to do with unemployment. Now, I'd like to introduce the panel to you before I start talking a little bit about my own experience as an actor. First of all, we have Pauline McLynn, David Herlihy, Marion O'Dwyer. All of these are distinguished actors, and Dr. Ming Rawat, who is also my sister-in-law, but is a very skilled, experienced doctor, but also is a mindfulness teacher and deals with a lot of issues to do with stress and anxiety in the medical profession. And what we're hoping today is that she'll be give us some insight into how her teaching and her experience within her dealings with doctors who are suffering stress and anxiety might be applicable to our industry. So I'd like to start out with just why the idea arose. I think I suffered unnecessarily as a young actor with anxiety and stress, and a lot of it had to do with unemployment and about my identity as an actor. I felt it very difficult to justify myself as an actor when I was unemployed, but people would ask, oh, you're an actor, what do you do? What do you? Well, I'm acting. What are you doing? Well, I'm not actually in anything at the moment. And unemployment became a sort of a negative experience. It became one which I became withdrawn. I was less sociable. I kind of got anxious, and then you'd get a job and everything would be great. And that's how it went. And I found various mechanisms to deal with it. I got into windsurfing in the 80s, and that was fantastic because I was with a bunch of people who didn't know anything about what I did. But when I went to London, I was kind of, the periods of unemployment were longer, and anxiety began to grow. And the problem was that anxiety then became present all the time. It was kind of bubbling away in the background, to the point where I had a wonderful job with Theatre Clwyd in 1993. I was on tour in Wales, 6 months, doing 2 plays in rep, touring the length and breadth of Wales. Wonderful. 2 weeks before the end of that job, we were in St. David's down in West Wales, staying in a hotel, doing the show, different show every night, sessions after the show, and I started getting anxious about being out of work. And someone said to me, "What's wrong with you, Peter?" And I said, "I'm going to be out of work in 2 weeks." And so I ruined the last 2 weeks of that wonderful job. Sun is shining, June, West Wales, hotel, sessions, the crack, doing what I love. And I'm thinking about, God, I'm going to be out of work. And this then became a sort of, I've heard it from a lot of actors recently. I don't know what's happening in 3 weeks' time. And I just think, this is crazy. We live to work, and when we get an actor who's working is the happiest and most complete and most wonderful human in the world. And it's what we crave. We crave work. We want to work. And when we're not working, it has all sorts of difficulties. The problem is that anxiety and stress are very useful tools, and I expect that that's what their role is, a survival thing. But it's just that we need to kind of, I think, as an industry, re-examine what it means to be unemployed and to possibly rebrand it. Now, I eventually got through my anxiety by working as a chef, which I resented initially. I thought, this is not me. It's hard. It's everything. And then I had a sort of a ping moment where I said, you know what? Actually, I am a chef. And I went in there, I'm a chef. Forget about acting, because I know the phone's going to ring at some stage and I'm going to be off and I'm going to be an actor. And so that kind of solved that problem. But I wish I'd done that in my 20s, rather than suffering and I wasn't depressed, but Tom Murphy, the great playwright, used to say, actors don't get depressed, they get bored. But then there's a melancholy with that. And then the quality of your life kind of shrinks slightly. And the other crucial thing is that if you've got anxiety, you sort of become a bit blurred. And if you get an opportunity to meet someone with the possibility of getting a job, if you carry that anxiety into the room, it blurs you, it gives them a slightly uncomfortable feeling, and you're not who you could be. Now, I'm going to just be poetic for a little moment. I love the sea. I grew up by the seaside, and there's a boat that I've been watching for some time, and it's out in a very kind of exposed part of Youghal Bay, but it's safe and it's anchored properly, it's in beautiful condition, it's cared for, and it just moves around with the tide. It goes in, it goes out. Sometimes the wind is going against the tide, so it's banging around. Sometimes it's very choppy and it bounces up and down. And then somebody gets in it and they sail away and it's magnificent. And in some ways, that would be my aspiration, to be like that boat at anchor, to be able to take the tide, to be able to take the wind, whatever, but to be ready and to be magnificent when I get the chance. And I think that in the past, I've had opportunities where I could have done that and it didn't happen because I couldn't control my anxiety. So that's my story. I'd now like to pass you on to Pauline McLynn.
Hello, everyone. I think you'll have noticed that the actors here on this panel are of an age, and I did check just beforehand with all of us, and none of us is trained. So I think that we have a particular outlook on life as an actor as a result, and I think we kind of all came to acting possibly in the same way, in as much as kind of almost by accident. I mean, we are children of the late 50s and 60s. Don't do the mathematics. It's just we share many hundreds of years between us now at this stage. And I grew up in Galway. My family are from Sligo. I grew up in Galway. There was nothing there at the time. There was theatre rarely came. Even school productions, we'd go and see the Irish Theatre Company used to bring Shakespeare every so often, and if it wasn't a great production in the school hall, we paid no attention. They had to stop a production of Macbeth once because we just weren't listening, and they went off, and we were just thrilled with the day out. But so in other words, like, there was nothing that made me fall in love with the theatre or being an actor. But it's kind of like one of those things that I think comes at you almost like a vocation, and so you can kind of not avoid it. So I went to college, to Trinity, and got a very middling degree because I spent most of my time in the Student Drama Society. And that was the start of it. I emerged into Ireland in the 80s, 1983. Huge recession. There were no jobs, even if you were trained to do something. So I fell into acting, and we basically made our own work because there was no work going for younger people anyway. And of course, we thought that everything was shite anyway until we came along. The arrogance, but and maybe it was, I don't know, but we thought so. And so we just started making our own work because there was no alternative. And that was, so it's been 38 years of staggering from one crisis to the next as a result, because it's the old thing, I started with nothing and I've still got most of that. It's been just a roller coaster of trying to manage, and this is to be an actor. When am I an actor? It's when you're unemployed as much as when you're employed, because you will spend most of your life unemployed, unless you're Judi Dench. And even she gets the wobblies sometimes, I think about, will I ever work again? So you live, though, constantly in a state of stress. And because none of us were trained to deal with that, we just had to learn through the School of Hard Knocks. And that goes for learning acting as well. And I say it's stressful whether you're working or not working, because when you're working, the stress is that you're approaching an opening night, and then you've got to run, and you've got to hit the ground running every night and deliver the show that you agreed on with everybody else in front of a different audience every night if it's theatre. And it's got to be like that. You're under stress all of the time. And then, as Peter says, coming to the end, you get anxious because there's nothing. This pandemic has been quite extraordinary for actors, I think, really, because I had to explain to people that it was just largely like being out of work for a year. But the only difference was you always hoped that the phone would ring before this, but we knew when the pandemic hit that there wouldn't be anything, for at least a year. So we live constantly in a state of stress and anxiety. And you have to find ways of thinking yourself through it. I mean, for myself, I love the bit of gardening because I can go out and have an argument with myself where I'm right and wrong. It's a Schrodinger's thing, a little like being an actor. If you open the box, is the actor working or not working in there? But are they still stressed? Yes. So, I go out and I weed. It's not really gardening. I do a bit of knitting and I took up the bit of writing, which was no help at all because that's literally like, so how's the writing going? Yes, I'm not writing the latest novel. Yeah. So, I think you spend, as a result of being an actor or anything associated with it, you spend, like Beckett said, you spend your time failing and you just have to be, I think actors are probably the bravest people I know because you do live in with a constant hum of anxiety and stress and you just put yourself out there and go, I'm doing this. If someone's good enough to say to you, I want you to try this job, you have to be brave and go, yeah, and even if it's an utter shit show, I'll have tried, I'll have failed, and I'll fail better the next time. So, it's trying to find a system, I think, for everybody, a support system, so that you are allowed and, to go out there and fail. And also so that someone has your back when it happens. Because, back in the day when we were growing up, there was a lot of bad behaviour. It doesn't happen anymore because you can call people out on bullying, on anything like that. At least two of us here on this panel have had jobs that were so awful that they had to end early and we had to ask for help after it. And I'm, one of the most apparently properly adjusted and, happy people you'll meet, but I have known great times of unhappiness because of this job and because of, how people were allowed to behave and hopefully now aren't anymore. But I think that, as actors, we just need to speak out about stuff like that now. And also just to say to other people who might be struggling, we have you, we have your back. That's the best thing about acting, is that when you're in a collective and you're either touring with a show or you're in a show or a radio play, some filming, if you're with a proper decent bunch of people, like in life, they have your back. And that's what we must always, when we're looking out for people, we must always make sure that we do that at grassroots level. And then beyond that, try to fight for a bit more support, from the government, from the Arts Council, whatever else. Anyway, I'll shut up now and let you, Mr. David Herlihy, tell you his story.
Well, thanks, Pauline, and thanks, Peter. It's great. It's just lovely to be here. Really, it's such a pleasure and a privilege, and great to have the opportunity just to sort of sit and talk so openly, I suppose, about your experience of being an actor, professional actor, and the sort of the attendant sort of stresses and strains. Yeah. And great to be in the theatre space and to be sitting looking out at an audience. That's, and in a way it's funny, like I sort of think to myself, well, I'm in the space and I'm talking and we're here together. Isn't that's something, there's something special about that. It doesn't have to be funny way, it doesn't have to be any more than that, even though I'm used to sort of getting primed and getting ready and doing warm-ups and going backstage and waiting for the adrenaline to start pumping so that you get motivated and then you're in the zone and go on stage. But it's just lovely to sort of, I don't know. When I started I started acting when I was a kid, and my first experience on stage was as a kid, and it was really unusual in the sort of late '60s, I suppose, because like nowadays, like drama classes are so common for kids that go to drama and all this kind of stuff. Whereas it wasn't when I was growing up, and I wasn't particularly interested in football. And that was sort of the obsession in the neighbourhood, was football. And I went to the local team, which was, which now has half the Dublin panel playing for it, And I realised, I wasn't really particularly interested in football. But anyway, my father was very enlightened. He sent myself and my sisters to drama classes, and I got the bug. And I realised, there was something in it that really kind of I felt good about myself when I was pretending to be other people, I suppose, maybe put simply. And I suppose for most children, to be able to access your imagination, to be able to sort of, to be able to go somewhere else, sort of, and pretend to be somebody else is a beautiful thing, At least I found it so. And then I was very fortunate that I auditioned for my the drama class teacher, who was actually an actress and a stage manager herself, and she's still acting. A woman called Sheila Flitton. Mm-hmm. And so she said, if any boys can do a northern accent, would you come up after the show, or after the class rather? So I queued up with the lads and went up, did my accent, and because the Troubles were really in full flight then. I grew up with the sort of Bloody Sunday and everything, and you were always hearing that voice, that northern accent, whether it was Ian Paisley or whoever. So I had that accent, and I just started, whoa. And the soldiers came in here last night and they did blah, blah, blah. And I just, precocious little boy, just kind of blathering away. And anyway, she said, David, would you come up again? And she said, you've got the part. So I was 10 or 11, and I turned up with the Olympia. I got time off school, which was great. And so it was a new Brian Friel play. And suddenly I was in a rehearsal room with professional actors, and Brian Friel and his wife, and I think the director was Vincent Dowling. And so I was I'd say at 12, I was among professional actors. And I knew then, there was something in me said, this is what I want. And I'm going to come back to this, whatever happens. And so that was already planted in my mind. But I remember, it was in the Olympia, and I remember hanging out backstage with all the actors, because I was on in the first scene, and then I was just left to my own devices until the curtain call. And I just thought, this is a fantastic place to spend time. And but I was looking at these actors, and I knew that some of them, I remember a couple of them, I recognised one or two of them from the Reardons, as was the big soap at the time, a big drama. And I was kind of a bit starstruck, but it was like being in a big spaghetti junction in a funny way, because I realised all these actors are here now doing this job. But like Peter was saying, I knew very quickly that they were all, you look at their CV or whatever, you look at the programme, you realise they're just here now, and then they're going to be going somewhere else. And where are they going to be after this finishes? And what's going to happen next? So that insecurity was, I could sense that security, but I could also sense, and Paul, it was interesting Paul said about, having your back. I could also sense that there was a community. Yeah. And I know, so as a young fella, I realised, there's something really kind of solid here. These people all know each other, and they they're interconnected. And I found that very attractive, even though this insecurity was there. And I see, cut to sort of whatever, 10 years later when I left school and I got a job and all the rest of it, and I went back to doing classes again, and then I did amateur dramatics, etc. But I left my full-time job in 1984. And I still remember it was May the 19th, 1984. It was my father's birthday, actually. But I got to the point where I always wanted to give professional acting a go, but I was terrified of what it would mean to sort of just to kind of to walk out of a full-time, permanent and pensionable job. But to be perfectly honest, I was so stressed in that job. I hated that job so much that I thought, I really don't care whether I'm sweeping the streets. And as my mother said, you'd be lucky to get one of those jobs. That's a closed shop. You wouldn't even get a job cleaning the streets. But I said, I know I'm at the end of my rope here. I don't ever want to come back to the 9 to 5 again. And I'm not. And I haven't. And really, for me, that's been the most important thing, that, to remember what being an actor triggered for me as a kid, and staying connected with that. And I have. And really, I suppose, again, let's just come back to the stress factor, as I say, I remember watching those actors in the Olympia as a kid, and the show wasn't, by the way, the show wasn't a success. Brian Friel had been a hugely successful author. He'd had a Broadway success with Philadelphia, Here I Come, and won Tony Awards, and this play wasn't a success. And because there was a gay theme in it, which was really unusual in the early 70s. And anyway, I was taking all that on board. I was thinking, well, not everything you do is going to be successful. And I was okay with that. I realized, yeah, that's life. So rejection and failure and all that is part and parcel. But then you're a human being and you're going to get stressed and you're going to get anxious and you've got to pay the bills. So how do you deal with all that? And that never goes away. So for me, I just think you just I've always said to myself, I just want to be able to keep going no matter what. And again, I think one of the things for me was, well, I hope I haven't gone on too long.
Oh, brilliant. Keep going, please.
But like again, Pauline was saying in the 80s, this was a pretty depressing country. There was nothing, it was like that's why giving up a job was a big deal, because you were basically sort of cutting all your ties with any kind of security. But ironically, in those days, nobody had a job, but everybody could afford to live in the city, and rent was cheap. Yeah. So that pressure was out of the equation, and also, like, you could buy a house in the city centre for like literally 15,000, 20,000. Mm-hmm. But nobody wanted to live in the city centre and all that kind of stuff. So I realised if you got a bit of security, that would also give you sort of a degree of independence. So my attitude was, and it still is today, an actor ideally, and any artist should be able to live relatively comfortably, you know what I mean, at a basic income level, and then everything else is a bonus on top of that. So the most important thing is that you're practicing what your art is, no matter what it is. But being a professional actor, and the stresses and strains are unavoidable. That's the and I'm looking forward to next week, because I don't know how young people are coping. I mean, I would be terrified to go into the modern Ireland, with the sort of the pressures, the financial pressures, etc. But then we had different kinds of pressures, and they were equally stressful. But just to finish, in 1994, I was double job, and I'm very privileged and lucky to be in that position. Where you're rehearsing during the day and you're working at night, 3 session days. And I used to sometimes go to the gym in between. There was a gym in Georgia Street. Again, I was sort of in my late 20s, early 30s, so I was well up for that. But again, the stress, I realised I was very stressed. You know what I mean? As I got into my 30s, I was really, really feeling the stress more and more. I'd worked at the National in London, and I started really being more conscious of how the stress was really getting to me. There was a message at the stage door one day, and one evening, from a man called Mr. Dowling, and I thought it was Joe Dowling, the director. And I thought, oh, great, another audition. So I phoned the number, and it wasn't Joe Dowling. It was a man called Austin Dowling. And I said, I didn't realise it was. I thought it was Joe Dowling. And he said, no. He says, I'm a meditation teacher. I teach TM. And I thought, yeah, right. Well, I don't want to end up, sort of with my head shaved with a bowl on the streets, chanting Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. No disrespect. I was like, meditation. Yeah, right. Good luck with that. But for some reason, he said to me, he says, I know you from, I live in the city centre. And he said, I know you from, I've seen you, in Sandymount walking on the prom. And I said, yeah. So I live in Sandymount myself. And, I said, oh, right, yes. And I'm trying to get people in the arts interested in meditation, and people in politics and the sport. They were the areas that he was canvassing or whatever. So he said, "But would you like to talk about it? Would you like to?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "I'm not sure." He said, "Well, look, do you want to come around to the house and have a cup of tea and have a chat?" So I went around to the house and had a cup of tea and had a chat. And then he said, "Would you like to try a meditation?" I said, "Sure." So we tried a meditation, and immediately I realised something happened. And again, I could feel that sort of sense of relief from stress, from anxiety coming in. Again, because this was mid-afternoon and I had the show coming up in the evening. And already I could feel a little bubble of like, ooh, I feel kind of good. Yeah, I kind of feel kind of relaxed. He said, well, that's meditation. And so I didn't get my head shaved and get a begging bowl, but I did sign up, and I did start meditating, and I've been meditating ever since. And I found it hugely helpful. I still do, because again, people say, well, why do you meditate? What's in meditation? And I say, well, simply put, I would be by nature an anxious person anyway, but being a professional actor and all the vagaries of what we're all discussing, it's like it's piled on because of that, because of what we do. And meditation just takes some of that out. It's like a filter. It just takes some of the stress out. So I meditate in the morning and I meditate at night. And it's not a cure-all. It doesn't change everything, but it certainly helps, and it helps to centre me more. Helps me to be more present, and certainly as an actor, it certainly if you're performing in front of audiences and going on stage and whatever, I found it really, really useful. So that's me. Thank you.
Marion?
Right. My name is Marion O'Dwyer, and I'm an Irish actress. And like David, I started quite young to want to be an actor, but I feel I was really lucky in that it took me years and years to even get an audition, never mind a job. So consequently, unemployment doesn't hold the same fear for me. I used to temp in the bank, where I had a job in the bank when I started out first doing classes and stuff like that. So I managed that way at the beginning of my career. But anyway, as I started getting to act, I always remember this particular incident where we were sitting backstage. It was the last night of a play we'd been working on for about 4 or 5 months. And one of the older actresses suddenly went, "Will I ever work again?" And it was with genuine, complete despair. And I remember looking at her thinking, if she's like that, and she's one of the most respected Irish actresses, she works all the time, what hope is there for me? So I made up my mind there and then that I was not going to go down that rabbit hole of despair every time I was faced with what I like to call the abyss, otherwise known as unemployment. Because I was really, when I was looking at her, I was thinking, of course she's going to get work again. There's going to be more plays, there's going to be television work, there's going to be film, there's going to be voiceovers, radio plays. Something will come through for her sooner rather than later. And what struck me suddenly was I was so definite about it for her. So that's why I kind of thought, right, there's no point in giving energy to that despair. So dealing with the anxiety of unemployment in a practical way, I heard a great thing that the antidote to anxiety is action. So taking action. So when I face into unemployment and I don't know when it's going to end, the first thing I do, I like to think of it as mending my nets, like the fisherman waiting for better weather. I get myself ready for work. So all the boring things that you put off when you're doing a play or a job, like the dentist or health checkups or cleaning out the fridge, whatever it is, I try and do all those jobs and get them out of the way. And it makes me feel like I'm getting ready for the work that I don't know about yet. So that really helps me psychologically set myself up. Then there's all the practical stuff like, are my headshots up to date and is my spotlight page up to date? So I do all that kind of housekeeping as well. And the other thing I feel is it's really important on a practical level. We all have an agent, so well, hopefully we have an agent, and if they're professional and know their job, they're working on your behalf. And so you trust that, but at the same time, don't be afraid to get in touch with them and drop them an email and say, I've heard about this television job, and even though you might have heard there's only men in the job, just ask them anyway, and it just reminds them you're there and you're looking for work. But I try not to hoover up their time or be a moan or a nag. I don't want them to dread my phone call or my email, so I want to keep them on my side. So that's important as well. So what else was I going to say? But the other side of it is, I think we've all been saying it, like you face into this abyss of downtime, and sometimes it's no harm to actually use that time and just try and relax. It's easier said than done, but to give yourself over to it, sometimes just say, okay, I'm taking today off. I'm not going to worry about getting work today. And that can help. You just switch off, watch a bit of chewing gum TV and relax. And the other thing that I feel really helps me with dealing with unemployment is learning. Years ago, I started doing I never went to college after school, so I went straight into working in an office. So years ago, I started doing an Open University course. It was just a module in humanities. I was just doing it out of interest for something to do to keep me occupied. And I really enjoyed it. And one module borrowed another. And about 5 years later, I graduated with an honours degree in literature. And it was just, it fed into my work, but it also gave me a sort of, what will I say, self-esteem. It helped me that way. But it was useful as well. Now, obviously, that's a really expensive thing to do. It's got more expensive now. The grants aren't there for it. But there are other long-distance university things that people can do. There's a crowd called Future Learn, which is a free online learning resource. They give short courses that are free, that are provided by universities in the UK and in Ireland. And they can be like a myriad of subjects. And again, that just keeps your brain vibrant. It takes the anxiety out of things because you're doing something, and you're doing something useful with your day, and it's free. And the other thing I've used is a free language learning app called Duolingo, which I used during lockdown to learn Italian, to make me feel I would get back to Italy some fine day. So all those things. And meditation was another thing I was going to mention anyway, because I find meditation, and I'm not a regular person to meditate, but if the months are going on with unemployment, that's my tool to stay sane. And I find meditation, it calms your mind. So they say our ships come in over a calm sea. I think you can see clearly, you can more clearly what's going on, and you can see opportunities, and you get inspiration, you get ideas for whether it's to create work for yourself or make a few bob. And on a really practical level, money is always an issue, I think, for most actors. I found this woman through Image magazine. Melanie Morris did an interview with a woman called Santos O'Garo, and she's on Instagram as the Caribbean Dub, and she's also on YouTube as well. And she's a money mentor. She writes in Irish Country magazine as well. And she really is brilliant for anybody suffering from debt or money worries, that she gives you tools to help you deal with that and maybe create more streams of income for yourself. So that's my tuppence worth.
And now Dr. Ming Rawat is going to give
Thank you for having me, and those were amazing, amazing narratives of, what you've gone through, and, talking about your stress so openly and your solutions. So I'm just going to tell you, for me, I'm a GP, and I'm a GP educator, and I'm also a yogi, and I'm also a mindfulness meditation teacher. So I work clinically and I teach medically, but I think, like somebody just said, my heart is going more towards, finding healing and getting people more holistic by, being creative and actually using not just the prescription pad, not just the referrers, but to actually use collaboratively people's own energies to kind of help themselves and heal themselves. So again, meditation for me has been a cornerstone. And there's different kinds of meditation. So meditation, Zen meditation, and loads, TM, etc. But what I have been trained in is mindfulness meditation. And mindfulness meditation is, as Peter says, paying attention in this moment right now. So I just want you to put a hand on your tummy and your feet in the ground, a hand on your belly, a hand on your heart, and just feel how you're breathing. So are you a belly breather? Are you a chest breather? And maybe I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. Some of you have your eyes closed already. And we're just going to have a little moment of practice. And then I'll be talking more, because I need to ground myself. I've heard such amazing stories. My head is buzzing. So I want to come back to this body. I want to come back to this present moment. And the best way to feel the present moment is to actually drop into the body. So loads of beautiful teachers out there. My favorite teacher is Thich Nhat Hanh. So he encourages to just say what we're doing. So encouraging your breath in, so just saying quietly to yourself, breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. In, out. In, out. As you breathe in with awareness and out with awareness, maybe your breath can become a little bit deeper, and maybe you breathe out a bit longer. So, breathing in deep, breathing out long. Deep, long. Deep, long. And again, as you breathe deep and long, maybe you notice a sense of calm and ease into your body. So breathing in calm and breathing out ease. Calm and ease. Calm and ease, and even smile to yourselves, easing the muscles in your face, 200 plus of them. So that is ease. Breathing in calm. Breathing out ease, and I smile to myself. Gently opening your eyes and floating your hands down. So I'm back. I feel grounded. And I can now speak from a place of, as somebody said, calm waters. So what is mindfulness meditation? It basically, I'm going to break it down as a doctor now. It's actually quite neurological. So when we are anxious, our middle brain, so this is my brain, our middle brain, the amygdala, is firing. And somebody said, very useful, stress, anxiety. It gets us to do things. It's our survival kit. But what happens is, it gets so strong that it hijacks us. But thank God we have the frontal brain, neocortex. And what mindfulness meditation does is it allows this beautiful mammalian brain to be accessed by training. So right now I'm in the state of having been grounded by my breath, by feeling my body. But neurologically, the more I practice, like what you were saying, morning and evening, my brain rewires neocortex-wise. So it brings me better pathways. So a few breaths, if you are a practitioner, get you back. So that's why I think we have all the evidence now with regard to what mindfulness meditation does. And one of the lovely things, and I heard the words coming up again and again, it basically also, cultivates qualities, because you have to be patient. You have to accept, okay, I'm here for the next 20 minutes. You have to trust that this works. You have to be non-judgmental. You have to be non-striving. You have to allow every meditation to be what it is, new beginnings, and you have to let go. So these are deep qualities also, neurologically, but qualities that is being cultivated as we practice mindfulness meditation. Now, I told you initially I'm a yogi first. That was my first love. So I believe we can mindfully move our body and do these breathing, and what better way to actually nourish the body while we're meditating. I'm quite lazy, I don't like to exercise, so I do both at the same time. So I do mindful meditation. And I'm here feeling really encouraged and strong about this practice because in the COVID times, as medics, we really suffered. You may suffer, as you say, from unemployment and periods of not knowing when the work is going to come in, when the money is going to come in, and we suffer from overwork. We suffer from overwhelm. We suffer from huge anxieties also. And the GP training scheme that I co-founded with Austin O'Carroll, we train doctors to work in deprivation areas. So these doctors not only are going to have to be quality GPs, but they're actually going to work in deprivation areas. And I could not train doctors to work in these areas without arming them with some form of a self-care module. Okay, I teach dermatology, women's health, whatever, but my call now, I know, is teaching self-care, resilience building. And I think it can be taught in every profession, your profession, because in my profession, it is being taught. It is part of my scheme's curriculum. It is part of now the ICGP, which is, again, like you say, we need community. So my community is my ICGP, my college. So I go on once a month, every first Thursday of the month, and I have beautiful self-care pieces. Yesterday was creative writing by Juliette Brezen. Oh my God. The month before was me, mindfulness, meditation and yoga. The month before was a talk by a psychologist on, just the different kind of the platter of healthy mind. So every month there's something since the COVID times. So every week we have, every Wednesday it's education, 8 to 9 after busy clinics. But once a month we are held by our college. So that's community. So I don't know what else to say, except that this is a small practice that we've done. And, we can talk about it, but that's why I wanted you to practice it. So this is just breath practices. And then there's the beautiful part of yoga, which is I'm going to get into now if I'm allowed, because that's
sure,
my...
Of course.
So yoga then is people go, okay, I go to a yoga studio, I went to a yoga studio for years and I was like pretzeled. Do you know what I mean? And I loved it. But then I did the mindfulness training. And then I dropped into my yoga. And because I'm a medical educator, and I'm a yogi, and I'm a mindfulness teacher, and I know what stress is, like you, I put it all together. And there are courses you can do that actually brings these things together. And they are evidence-based with regard to neurology. So I think, as you say, what can I do when I'm, out of work or waiting for my work to come in? You can access other types of courses. So there's the MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program. It's an 8-week program. There is Koru, which is Paddy is going to do that next week, the first session of it, and it's supposed to be for young people between 18 and 25. As Paddy says, the author wanted to call it, practicing mindfulness to save your life. And they went, well, that's a bit too dramatic. Let's do it for 18 to 25, because the money's in there. These are the people that are most stressed nowadays. And believe me, as a doctor, there's a tsunami of anxiety out there. But what I'm encouraged as a doctor is there's a tsunami of evidence now. It's not the pills, it's not the tablets. I love the way Peter said, exercise, number one, that's my screen for every of my patients. Number 2, nature, gardening, the sea. Number 3, art, expression. Number 3, organization. So there's a lot of different things that you can access, you can do, and it can be organized. And that's what I like about it. So you just don't have to be flapping around in an anxiety mode, as you say. And don't forget, as a doctor, anxiety, your immune system goes down. I can go into this bit now, but I'm going to bring me back myself here. It has so many different impacts when we allow our amygdala to hijack ourselves, So, and I can tell you, for me, it has helped me so much to be present to my patients, to be present to you here now in front of these amazing people and an audience. This is my first time on stage, by the way. So it's like, Peter said something also, it's about the ability to self-regulate and to be so present that I'm totally enjoying this. And I'm totally sharing things authentically with you. So what I'm going to do after is a little mindful yoga session. I've got 3 mats, so I don't expect anybody to stay if you want, but we can do a little practice to close again, my little piece for you. But this is what Peter said, that maybe if we have a cup of tea and then we come back.
We have a break of 50. Well, we're going to have a discussion now after this, and then we're going to have a break. If anybody needs to rush away, please don't feel bad. But yeah, we're going to have a discussion, just throw open questions to anybody on any subject. There's a great deal clearly to talk about and a great deal of wonderful revelations there. And then we'll have a break. And if somebody wants to try mindfulness, obviously Ming is highly qualified. It would be good. I'm certainly going to do it. So people are welcome, and we'll try and facilitate whoever, or you can observe, or whatever way you want to engage with it. But Ming, if would you like to speak? You're going to take us out of this now, do a little more exercise.
Just to close before we open the discussion, because my head is going to get busy again with the discussion. Yeah. So again, another little practice is, okay, find your seat, find your sit bones. Okay, did you find them?
Yeah.
Okay, find your feet on the ground. Great. Notice your shoulders, and then notice your hands. And then notice your long, strong spine. And again, we're going to breathe the same way, but we're going to move a little bit. So, breathing in deep, breathing out long. And as you breathe in deep this time, look up and arch your back. And as you breathe out, curl your back. So this is your seated cat-cow. Breathing in deep, up we go. Breathing out, curve. And a third sequence. And curl. Lovely. Now, drop your head into your chest, chin to chest, and feel the weight of your head. It's about 10 to 12 kilograms, so that's a lot of weight to be carrying. So again, awareness now of your breath, breathing in deep, breathing out long. And as you breathe in again, go around the back. And everybody has a different body, so small circles, big circles, and breathing out, going forward. Breathing in, going back. Breathing out, going forward. And one more. And feel the weight of the head again. Breathing in deep here. Breathing out long. And let's go the other direction. Breathing in, let's go back. Breathing out forward. Second circle. And out. And one more. And out. And feel the weight of the head again. And tuck your chin back. So again, we carry our heads on, front in the phone or with anxiety. So again, posture on the mat, posture in real life. So again, this awareness of, oh my God, this is how much and just do your rolls. There's a practice for you. Now let's go into the shoulders, breathing in up, breathing out, let your shoulder blades kiss at the back, pull them down and lift them up. So you're doing it with full awareness. So this is a self-massage. I know when I get tense, that's where I keep my stress. So in my shoulders, and I roll the shoulders. So it's not just a little squiggle, it's with awareness. I feel them kissing at the back, I pull them apart, and I go back with my breath. Okay, come to stillness. Feel that in your body. And let's go the other direction. So pull your shoulders back up, and this time pull the shoulders blades apart, and then pull them back and feel them turning. You can use your breath to move, but just feel the shoulder blades, the muscles, the movement. So you're in your body. So once your attention is taken up with the breath or the body, this is a mindful movement. This is a mindful moment. So come to stillness. And we're going to do one last posture. So take one hand, left hand onto right knee, and just give your spine a nice little twist. Isn't that nice? So breathing deep into the body again and out. One more. Let's come to center again. Big breath here. And change. Right hand, left knee. And breathe up into the spine. And a nice twist. Second one. And one more. And come back to center. And again, just feel what's going on in the body. And coming back to the group, coming back to the stage.
Okay, so we're going to have a little discussion now. If anybody would like to ask a question or make a comment, you're very welcome. Anyone like to say anything? Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to say it's very nice to be here. Thanks very much. It's been great to listen to you all. And I think particularly found probably during COVID quite isolating in terms of community, felt quite alone at times. And it's nice to hear that I'm not alone because we all suffer from the same anxieties when we're going to get work, haven't worked since or whatever. And I suppose the question I'd like to ask, I suppose, is after auditioning and feeling, you know, when you send off the self-tape or whatever, that you feel that you've done a really good job. And then, of course, the rejection comes. And I would find that, you know, at times that can be difficult because you sort of think, God, I thought, you know, I did a really good job there or whatever, thought I was in the shout. And then also it can happen where you get good feedback and you think, oh God, I'm even closer than I think, and then it doesn't work out. So for me, what I was finding, I would get anxious after that sort of rejection. And is there any way that you would suggest maybe, I do come back to myself, we say after a few days, sort of I would be into the meditation and I exercise quite a bit and the sea swimming and all that. But is there anything else that somebody could suggest that, you know, make me feel, look, we also experience that?
I'm just going to repeat that question because it's been recorded and we don't have a mic. We can't hand a mic around to people. Yeah. I'm going to, the question that you have asked, is there any sort of mechanism or a habit of behaviour that you could use to deal with the anxiety and the stress and disappointment of not getting a job so that you could move on more quickly? Would that be correct?
Yes.
And how do we do it?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just throw it open to the floor there.
Well, you try not to get bitter.
Yeah, but I deal with it very badly. Yeah, I just like to say.
I mean, we're all different, and I think it really helps sometimes when you kind of look at the bigger picture and you know that, well, of course they're more right for it because they look like the sister of so-and-so, so that'll work better than if I was playing it or whatever. You can always rationalise it that way for yourself, but I mean, it just depends. Some parts you find really hard to let go of when you've worked really hard and you've learnt all the lines and you've done your self-tape and you didn't get it. And you can be devastated, but tomorrow's a new day and hopefully there'll be another job along to try out for. But it's a trick of the mind. I mean, I try and do an audition to the utmost I can and then just forget I ever did it. But that doesn't always work, you know. But I don't really have a magic trick for it. It is hard, but there was a wonderful actress, Pauline McLynn, God rest her, she used to say, disappointments are lucky. So.
Well, in my own case, when I was younger, if I went up for an audition, I would already be forming relationships with all the people that I knew were going to be in it. I'd probably be cooking for them. We'd be having great fun. We'd go to each other's kids' christenings and everything. And so when I didn't get the job, I lost all these relationships and friendships, and I'd be devastated. So I tried over the years not to develop these relationships in my mind with these phantom people. But I mean, I have had, as most of us would have had over the years, audition processes which are 3, 4, 5 callbacks, where you go into something called a chemical read with the cast and everybody's there and everybody wants you, but the producer's in the back going. And I just went through a series of 9 jobs that it was just me and somebody else. And I didn't get any of them, and that made me incredibly angry. And that was a very, very kind of black, dark moment for me. And I was drinking too much, and I was very angry. I mean, to be honest, one of the things I wanted to mention was that when we came into the business, there were brilliant actors: Ray McAnally, May Clusky, Eddie Golden, Donald McCann. I'm older than all of those people. They didn't reach my age. Donald McCann died in his 50s. Eddie Golden, 62. Ray McAnally, 62 or 63. May Clusky, 63. You know, and the anxiety was a killer. And I think it still is. It's something that hasn't been mentioned. And so it's crucial that you bring up this point, because that's an everyday thing. That's not just being out of work. That's doing your job. You know, going for an audition is doing your job. That's you are an actor when you're going to do your job. You don't become an actor when you get the job. And that's like essentially the corona under which this discussion is happening. Is we are actors all the time, but we seek validation. And and because of our relationship with it, because of our desire to be validated, we want to be in a play, we want to be able to say, or in a film, or I'm doing this. But we have to rethink. We have to sort of, I suppose, retrain our brains to say, I'm an actor, whatever I'm doing. I might be doing a bit of gardening, I might be painting, I might be sort of tidying out the fridge, or I might be cooking for 1,000 people in Fulham Football Club, which is where I used to work. But I'm still an actor. And it's a hard journey, but we have to use whatever tools we have. Meditation is one, and mindfulness seems ideal for actors. I poo-pooed mine. I'll be honest with you. My brother and my sister-in-law both did mindfulness, and I would go, mindfulness. I just slagged it off.
Exactly.
And
like
I found
that,
now that I've got into it, because it's helped me, because I've had a number of kind of health issues and a number of other bereavements and stuff like that, and I'm becoming more mindful. So I think mindfulness might be a tool that you could use, and certainly. But it is common for all of us. We all feel that. We all get crushed.
And there's a point at which the horror of realism just it kicks in, because there are so many people going for the same part. It used to be in world drama that there were 7 men's parts for every 1 woman's part, by the way. Now with gender blind casting and what have you, it's not always the case. But there will always be so many people who are suitable for this job. Yeah. Myself and Miss Marion O'Dwyer have only worked together once, and we sat afterwards and said, let's figure this out, shall we? And the reason is we did a radio play just before the pandemic hit in London, the greatest of days, and we played sisters. And maybe we never got to play sisters on a stage. But the reason why we have never worked together is because it was always one or other of us that got the part in anything we went for. We worked it out. So, you'll know when you do your self-tape, or you walk into a room when in the old days and met people, that sometimes if the casting director is really bad, you meet everyone else that you know is going for the part anyway in the room as you're going in. If they're any good, they're casting a few parts at the same time, so you don't know. Yeah. You never see the person that you know is probably going to get the part. It can be a very flattering thing, because when you meet the other person or persons up for the role, you think, they've put me in with them. You must flatter yourself and say, thank you, especially if you get the part. And you go, so-and-so is now going, she'll go and see that and go, so that's who beat me to it this time. But, you become very aware of, the people you're up against, and the reality of that the margins are that, no matter how well you do, if you come around the wrong corner at the wrong time, or the right corner even at the wrong time. It can be very random, you know, who they choose. So I guess you just have to go easy on yourself. You always have to, like I felt when we did the mindfulness there and the whole lot, I was reminded that we should be kind of selfish for ourselves every day and just take the bit of me time. And part of that is when you get your rejection to just go, it wasn't necessarily me. It might have been, you know, there are a slew of reasons why you didn't get a part. You'll still never get over it if it was one of those parts. And you'll think, if I had got that then, you know, it's the road not taken. There are several roads in the forest for a while, you know, where you went along, you helped make a play for somebody, and then somebody else got the opportunity to walk the road. And you just think, if that had happened to me back then, so many other things wouldn't have, though. You know, as you say, the disappointment is lucky. Maybe, you know, but it takes about 20 or 30 years to be able to look back on those moments and go, do you know, they did me a favour there, actually. And I still don't believe it, sorry, I'm saying it, but I say it long enough, maybe I'll believe it. But anyway, you know, the road not taken is always the one that you'll beat yourself up with. And also, I think being Irish, let's say it out loud, we, certainly people of our age, we dealt in guilt, I mean, as well, you know, like, so we're great at whipping ourselves for the things that might have been, you know, and it's kind of generational for some of us, but we're getting over it, you know. And yeah, I guess you just need the help to get over yourself sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, and
just
get out of your own way.
Onwards. As the great Carl Shields, sadly, another man who died
Onwards.
young, he would always say, onwards, no matter what, you know. So, and it's the simplest of words, but it's one of the most helpful I've found in the last while, you know.
Yeah. Dave, Marion, do you?
Yeah, I you know, it's funny. I was thinking, I was working with a number of young actors the last couple of years before the pandemic, and even last year, I was lucky enough to have two jobs where I was with young actors, and you know, one of them was talking about, you know, a really good break that he got, and I remember him. He was terrific in this particular series, and it got made. They did two series, and then it got for whatever reason they didn't go further forward. Nothing to do with him, you know. And I was thinking, and I could see how insecure he was, and I could see how difficult he was finding things or whatever. But I said to myself, the great thing is that he's already enjoyed a degree of success. He's already had a success. He already knows how it feels to have some degree of success. Because I think, well, you know, we live in the X Factor generation, all that, and it's not my generation, and, you know, it's sort of like anybody can be an actor, anybody can be a star, all that kind of stuff. I do think that what you do need to, like all the self-care in the world, and I love that word that because it is, and what Pauline was saying about nurturing yourself and, you know, kind of looking after yourself and me time. I think if you're a professional actor, I think sooner or later you need to have evidence of, not evidence, but you need to have a sense that, yes, you know, I have some kind of a foundation here where I can fall back on, you know I can do this and I know I'm good at this. No matter what's happening, no matter what's happened subsequently. And again, it'll come around again. And what my job is to keep myself well in the meantime. As I say, with that particular young actor, I was initially a bit worried because he had other things going on, you know, family stuff going on and whatever. And I said, I hope he's okay. And I said, no, he's going to be okay. Because he knows already that he's a good actor. And he knows that he has an ability, and he knows that, you know, he already has, you know, good kind of mileage or whatever under his belt. I think we all need that. You know what I mean? I think to be constantly faced with rejection without something to show for it, for your own sense of self, will be impossible. And I know that, like, certainly as a young actor, what I was really grateful for was that I never asked for it, but I got it. I got people who became mentors. You know, I mean, one or two people in particular who like, they told me in no uncertain words, you know, welcome to the profession. Great to have you on board. Away you go. You know, open a door for me. You know what I mean? So that when the rejection came, as it does, even within that year. And I remember that particular director who'd give me a part, and then he wanted to give me another part, and I wasn't right for the part, and he had to say no to me. But because he'd already invited me into the company and given me a part already, I knew that it wasn't personal. So it's that, but I think we all need, I suppose again, that sense that, you know, we know that we're sort of we're valued, and so that when we're in that downtime, we can give that to ourselves. We have the ability to give that to ourselves and to nurture ourselves. Because without that, then when the next audition does come along, you could be in a very bad way, and you're not ready for what might be the job that you do get. Anyway.
So, Marion?
Well, basically exactly what David was saying. I think the fact of if you have had work, it gives you that belief that, oh, I must be all right because they did employ me. So then, you know, I didn't get that, but maybe I'll get the next one. Yeah. It is a sort of, you are constantly checking in with yourself going, am I any good at all? Should I give this up? Should I have stayed in the bank? There's all of that. But the bottom line is it's a vocation, and you kind of don't have much choice about it in a way. And like I've many's a time kind of gone, I'm too old now to change, so better stay with it. Like, yes, you know.
Yeah,
but it's true. But I love it, and I just love working, and I love the people I work with. I love it so much. So it hurts when you don't work.
Yeah.
It is, you know, like there's no greater pleasure than, you know, doing a gig with Pauline McLynn in front of a microphone with a great script. It's heaven, you know. So when you don't get it, it is hard, but you just have to.
Sometimes, you know, you have to believe what's told to you. I just will tell this a small story. You know, sometimes you'll have people saying, well, they've gone another way with that part. And I used to always think, well, that's just the most bullshit reason for anything. What other way did they go? Why did it come my way, you know? So I remember being at a brilliant actor's funeral, and there was a very nervous actor there because a series called Ripper Street was being made here, very brilliant series, you know, set back in Victorian times about police work and the whole lot, and it was fabulous, a series. And they had a lot of stuff in a brothel, and every woman of a certain age went for the part of the brothel mistress in it, just in one particular episode. And they were all told they've gone another way with that part. And for once, it was so clear to everyone because they cast an actual actor, a friend of ours, Jonathan White, as the madam of the brothel. Sometimes, back in those days, they did have a man dragged up, literally in drag. That was the brothel madam. And he spent a very nervous funeral saying, yeah, she went for the part. And I keep saying to him, yeah, they did go another way. Honestly, it was me. Now, could we be more different? So, you know, sometimes what you think is the bullshit reason, no, you know, they really have been thinking a whole different other way to you. It's they say, no, it's definitely, I'll tell you who it's not, this part. It's not Pauline McLynn. Let's put her tape there and let's see where else. You know, literally, it can be that. So it's not you, it's them.
And can I just...
I have to say I have been fortunate. I have had work.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really brilliant,
Yeah.
you know. So.
Yeah.
Can I just...
Like what Mark
Sorry.
says, and I suppose all of us, you want to work.
Yeah.
And I love it, and you do want to work.
Yes, you love it. Well, that's the love. I'd just like to ask Ming to make a comment. Say, for example, if you asked that question, if you went to the doctor and what her response would be if you arrived in the surgery saying, I've had this experience, I feel very bad, just to see what her response would be.
So I'm going to have both hats, so the medical educator and, you know, so for me, we have intense moments in medicine and we have to deal with it. And one of the ways we deal with it is we have balance groups. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
So basically it's a group of people experiencing the same kind of suffering. So doctors, so my balance group, you know, so we go in and we basically bring up a case that has stuck with us. You know, sometimes you go in, the case is right there beside you. So it's difficult to live with that. So, and it's a way to process things a bit faster because, you know, what I would say to you is it's a loss. So you have to go through, like Peter says, anger, you know, you have to go through all the different, you know, stages of loss each time. And your self-esteem is in that on top of it. So I think it's a complex thing to try and get through it quickly. and by yourself. So again, you know, if you're doing work with regard to supporting your young actors and all actors, that's for me as an older GP, I have my Ballant group, I have my CME group, I have different groups I can dip in and out. So I ask you, which groups do you dip in and out?
And this is the key question. We have yet to actually crystallize this experience into some kind of narrative and into some sort of cohesive resource. I mean, I would say that the Irish actors are a wonderful resource, but they're a very vulnerable resource. And very often, I mean, it's wonderful that we're all sitting here and talking, and it's amazing how much coherence there is in it. But this should be available, and it will become available to younger actors. But also what younger actors probably are missing is that when we all started, if you got a job in the Abbey, there was probably 12 other people in the play. There was another play upstairs rehearsing. There was a play in the Peacock. And so you had about 40 people milling around the place, and you always had an older person coming up to you saying, if you do this like this, you'd be better and you'll get the laugh like that. But there was always that sense of mentorship and security, and you could aspire. There was a sense of there was a community. There was what you were talking about. That doesn't really exist anymore because the big theatres they don't have big casts anymore. The runs tend to be shorter. You don't have something like the Abbey Company. When I worked at the Abbey, 20 life members. Another 10 were on one-year contracts, and there was another 10 freelancers. So it was 40 people in the building. You know, and all of that. There was milling around. People were coming and going and stuff. But this is the crux, and that's the reason for these forums. Is we need to start to get organised and look at these are stories. We make them into a resource and try and kind of channel them and make them available and even mentor people. Somebody can say, well, there's a bunch of people. If you're really miserable, you can talk to Pauline or Peter or Marion or Dave and talk them through and say, well, I had that experience or whatever. I'm not sure how it would work out, but I certainly think we've got a pot of gold here, and there are people who need this resource, and we should hopefully develop a mechanism by which people can benefit from that.
Well, today's been extraordinary for me to just be using some of the words about what it is to be an actor. Like, you know, you will be stressed, you'll be anxious. I think as well, just to say, you know, certainly people of our generation as well, we weren't. It wasn't part of the culture to talk about how you felt.
No.
Do you remember we'd see American movies and they'd always want to chat about how they felt, and we go, what? You know, so it's we've come a long way, and I think, you know, it's brilliant to even if they are inadequate words sometimes to cover, you know, the myriad emotions and, you know, things that can happen to you as an actor. You know, we should be allowed to say just properly out loud without being wankers, you know, or feeling like that we are. Things like, if you've had a brilliant job, and when it goes well as an actor, there is just no feeling like it on earth. And when you know, and particularly theatre is great for this because people remember it even better if it was good. You know, sadly, if it's a movie, they can watch it again and go, actually not as good as I thought. So, you know, double-edged sword there. But there are things like when a job is really brilliant and it stands the test of time, even in people's memories, oh, don't we love that, then you can say to people, yeah, and after that, I was not myself for a while. I had a period of mourning because when it's a brilliant job, that's the other thing. There is a grief because you fall a little in love with everyone that's involved in this wonderful thing, and then you move on, and with the best will in the world, you don't see everybody every day, and you think we'll never not be talking to one another every day. I didn't know, sorry. Within a week, you know, the whole days will have gone by, and the people that you were living with for so long and loved for so long, and you still love them, but there is that mourning process because it's gone. You know, so it's you know, important to just acknowledge it and say, I see you there sitting in that corner, and I know what you are, and we'll deal with it and onwards. You know.
So, any other questions? I think this has grown into a much bigger conversation than I was anticipating, and a much more lively one. But are there any more questions? I'm not sure what the time is now. We've probably run over. Have we? Anybody got the time?
20 past 12.
No.
Oh God! Well, I think that would anybody else like to ask a question? Yeah,
I'd like to say thank
Alison.
you very much. I saw some of my trials in the last year via Zoom, but it's been 2 years since I've seen you in the flesh. It's a pleasure.
Oh, lovely.
Beautiful
We
to
made
hear
it.
this whole topic because it's so important to all of us. And I do think that there's a huge generational shift that I'd love to be able to turn the clock back with, but I can't. Young kids are now taught that the word fail, it stands for first attempt in learning. And that failure is part of our lives every single day, and it is for everybody in every profession. So it's up to us how we respond to it.
Yeah,
And I think I wish I'd known that as a
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think you absorb some of that when you move forward, but it's really very life affirming to hear the conversation today.
Can
Great.
I ask Dr. Ming one last thing? Just on it, as you were talking about it, occurs to me, like, you know, rejections, failures, all of that. Where do you stand on people just having a good old cry? Because I seem to do nothing but, you know, when I mourn, they like, I didn't get that part, and have a little cry and talk to the dandelions and go, well, you know, I'm not going to pull you up because we need the pollinators, but let's talk about this. You know, and then crying when you do get the job, or crying when, you know, the job ends. And is crying healthy? Well, I hope.
What you just said, like I said to you, the body, it's all in the body. So when the mind and all the emotions, if the body wants to cry, needs to cry, that's
Let
why
it
I
out.
love the yoga. So the more in touch you are with your body and the emotions can go through, you express it and it's there. You don't fester. It's not like a, you know, abscess. It's just a little pimple.
Yeah. I cry when I'm really happy as well. Like the Olympics has
Wonderful.
me in bits at the moment. You
You
know,
must get
seeing
very
people-
dehydrated.
Yeah.
So look, we'll wrap things up there, but thank you all very much for coming. It's a shame that we couldn't get more people in, but these are COVID times, but it just feels wonderful to be back in a theatre with an audience. It's very exciting and wonderful, and thank you to the panel here for, and it's lovely to see them. They're my great friends and my relatives, and I just, there's great joy in being together with them and being together with you. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all.